The Atwell team continues to pull off the upsets here at Recreation Lanes in the Major League 5-pin playoffs. They just barely squeaked into the fourth and final playoff spot, and despite having the lowest average among the 6 teams in the league, are now just one win away from the title. Our lineup for this final game: Shad Clisby leading it off for Team Atwell, followed by Aaron Jaworski and Terry Atwell. The lineup for the Wilson team: Christy Wilson leading things off, followed by Ken Wilson and Bob Wilson. And Shad Clisby starts things off with a spare for his team. Team Atwell with a 4-1 lead. They finished 32 points ahead in pinfall, 32 points ahead of the Wilson squad in Game 1 of this HB Championship Final. So a lot of ground for the Wilson team to make up here, and the underdog Atwell team is poised to pick up the winner's check and take the inaugural Major League 5-pin title. Still some work to do here, though. I know the Wilson team will not go down without a fight. Aaron Jaworski. He's up against Ken Wilson.
Oh, nice ball, dummy.
And Jaworski not too impressed with that effort. He'll take 10 in the first frame. And Ken Wilson on the middle leaves the right corner pin standing. And the captain, Terry Atwell.
Whoa. Come on, Terry. All right, bud, big hop, start off.
Off the mark there early. It'll be up to Terry with plenty of experience on his side, bowling with a couple of younger guys, and really Terry has been the kind of the rock for this team throughout the season, and especially in the playoffs. And of course, his teammates hoping that he can lead the charge here one more time. Of course, one player can't win it all, though. You need everybody clicking, and the Atwell team has definitely had everybody clicking in the playoffs. Completed the big upset of the top-ranked Mansell team in their semifinal. The Wilson team beat Team Boorman in the semifinals, and as a matter of fact, the Wilson team came back from a 4-1 deficit in that semifinal to move on to the championship, so they can maybe look back on that and know that they aren't out of this yet, and that it is doable. Bob Wilson in the anchor position for his team in this final game.
All right, Chad, you know what to do.
And so dead even after the first frame, 38 apiece. And that 4-1 lead for the Atwell team, 32 points, the difference in pinfall. Back to the top of the order with Christy Wilson, who punches a head pin in the second. That's her second straight head pin. Tough start for Christy. .220 average for Christy in the regular season. 21-19 record. Shad Clisby trying to take advantage. He also pops the head pin out. Tough one there for Christy Wilson. She punches the head pin and throws it through the hole twice, so only 5 for her, 15 through 2 frames. And her dad, Bob Wilson, at the back there, trying to settle his daughter down. Chad Clisby will count 13 in this second frame. He's got 33. So he's up 18 points early on Christy Wilson. Here's Ken Wilson back in the middle of the game, and after leaving a right corner pin, or missing his right corner spare in the first frame and taking 15, a split for Ken Wilson in the second. Jaworski now, he's on the middle, and it's that extra bonus from the right 2 pin. Still looking for our first strike of this final game. A cautious start for both teams. Jaworski off the mark there with his spare attempt. Ken Wilson will settle for 13 in the second frame. He's at 28 through 2. And Aaron Jaworski counts 12. So Ken Wilson leading Aaron Jaworski by 6 points through 2 frames. Terry Atwell now, captain of his team, and there's the first strike of the game. Wilson trying to come back one of his own, and that's well off the mark. The left 3-2. So the Wilson team will need at least 4 points, 4 to the possible 5 in this last game. They only got 1 in the first game. And if they get the 4 points, that would tie it at 5 apiece, and then pinfall would be the deciding factor. So they need at least the 4, and they would need in that situation to win on pinfall, or else a sweep. So not much room for error for Team Wilson in this final game. There you see it, the only strike to this point, Terry Atwood.
Oh, there you go!
Now in the third. And Christy Wilson comes up with a strike after back-to-back head pins in 1 and 2. Clisby pops out 3 pin. And a strike for Ken Wilson. So Christy Wilson leads it off with a strike in the third. Her brother Ken follows with a strike of his own. And Chad Clisby still looking for his first strike of this final game. He counts 13 in the third, 46 through 3. So Christy Wilson back in her match with a strike in the third frame. As the anchors go to work. Good ball there from Bob Wilson. He leaves the right corner pin standing, however. Aaron Jaworski, actually the number 2 bowler for his team in this final game. He's on the middle there, nice looking ball, but left corner pin stays standing. Bob Wilson can use a spare here after Watching Terry Atwell, his opponent, strike in 2. Bob Wilson is off the mark, however. Aaron Jaworski, he converts on his left spare attempt. He trails Ken Wilson. A few at this point, though, after Ken strikes in the 3rd. Terry Atwell looking for back-to-back strikes. It looks good out of his hand, and it is Terry Atwell with a 2nd consecutive strike. And he puts a little pressure on Bob Wilson. Terry Atwell making the early statement. Trying to lead his team to the big upset. Wilson has hit the middle in the first 3 frames. Got the strike in 3, but she misses the middle here. Shad Clisby whiffs on his 2nd attempt. And it'll be a 2nd straight open frame for Shad. And Christy Wilson makes her spare, so that gives her 45 in the 3rd with a spare in number 4. Shad Clisby with the open in 4. She is now trailing Christy Wilson. After the spare in 3, he's off the mark with this one. Aaron's opponent, Ken Wilson, misses the chop spare attempt. Really, Terry Atwell, the only player managed to put much together early on in this final game. He is on a double. But he's the only one in his team with a strike so far in this game. Aaron Jaworski will take 10 in the 4th. He's 52, a slow start for Jaworski. And Ken Wilson with an 18-point lead on Jaworski through 4 frames. Bob Wilson, who is also looking for his first strike of the game. Punched in the 1st, left to right corner, standing in the 3rd. And another head pin for Bob Wilson here in the 4th. Terry Atwell now, the captain, working on a double. As his partner Shad Clisby looks on. Atwell off the mark. It's a comfortable lead for him over Bob Wilson. Has 2 punches in 4 frames. Wilson's looking to win every match here. That would, I'm sure, be their objective at this point. With a 4-1 hole to climb out of. Again, if they can manage to get 4 of a possible 5 points, they can still win on the tie-breaking formula, which is pinfall. But if they can win all 3 matches, them a pretty good chance, but it's going to be tough, especially considering Terry Atwell has opened up a comfortable lead here early on his opponent, Bob Wilson.
Keep that body straight, Chad. Keep that body straight. Come on.
Ken Wilson and Christy Wilson still in good shape in their matches, however. Unlikely Terry Atwell team. Having a great run in the playoffs here, and just a few frames away from what would definitely be a major upset. So the pinfall is still pretty close there, 219 to 211. And again, Wilson's trailing by 32 points, a 32-point lead for Team Atwell as far as pinfall is concerned after the first game. So Team Atwell can wrap up the title if they can manage to win 2 of their 3 matches. That would guarantee them the title. We're in frame number 5 at Recreation Lanes in Brandon, Manitoba. And a strike for Bob Wilson in frame number 5. He knows that's a big one. Falling behind early to Terry Atwell. Finally, Bob Wilson gets on the board after 2 head pins and a right corner in his first 4 frames. Finally gets a good break in the 5th. Atwell taking on Wilson in this match, trying to respond, and he's off the mark there. So maybe gives Bob Wilson a bit of an opening with that miss. He'll try to convert the spare, which would still leave him in pretty good shape.
All right, Terry, take out. Let's go, buddy.
Atwell backs off there. Gains his composure.
Alright, all the sticks. All the sticks.
Sometimes you hear in league play and whatnot, you'll hear people giving the bowlers a hard time for backing off, or for usually not for backing off, but if they begin their delivery and then stop. And sometimes you hear the chance of balk and whatnot, but it is completely fine to back off. In fact, as long as your ball doesn't cross the foul line, you're okay to regroup. Once it crosses the foul line, it is in play. But even if you drop the ball and it doesn't make it to the foul line, you can retrieve it and start over again without a penalty. Just a little bit of information from the bowling rule book for you there.
Alright, all the sticks. All the sticks. Everything counts, Shad. Everything counts. Let's go.
Very eventful final game here to this point, but still very close, and still anything can happen. Again, Team Atwell needing only 2 points out of a possible 5 in this last game to wrap up the 2003 Major League 5-pin title.
That was cute. Great work.
We are in the 6th frame. See there, Christy Wilson with an 11-point lead on Shad Clisby.
Come on! Jeez.
And Aaron Jaworski with back-to-back head pins, frustrating for him. Ken Wilson with the early lead in this match. And he also punches in frame number 6. That one way off the mark for Aaron Jaworski. He'll try to pick up his 10 and move on. Ken Wilson takes out the one side. Try to do the same on the other. Terry Atwell, the captain of his team. Back-to-back strikes in 2 and 3. The only double we've seen in this game so far. Ken Wilson counts 12 in the 6th. He's at 102, so also a bit of a struggle here for Ken by his standards anyway. But he does lead his match. He's up by 27 points on Aaron Jaworski, who is really having his struggles going on in this game. Actually, we're at the, I shouldn't say early on, we're already in the 6th frame. So coming down to the wire here, still very tight. A lot to be decided. $2,200 going to the winning team today. Bob Wilson with a spare in frame number 6. Terry Atwell gets his 15, so after 6 frames, the Wilson team with a 13-point lead in that pinfall total. Christy Wilson leads her match. Ken Wilson leads his match. Another match between Terry Atwell and Bob Wilson, still pretty close. Well off the mark there. Another open frame for Shad. 7th. So Christie will continue to hold the lead, and in fact she'll pad her lead with a spare in 7.
Hang on.
So she's in good shape against Shad Clisby. Aaron Jaworski and Ken Wilson go to work now. Both players punched in the 6th frame. Ken Wilson up by 27 in this match. Catches a piece of the head pin there, just a small piece, and ends up with a chop. Aaron Jaworski. Big strike for Aaron Jaworski. And that gets him right back in the match against Ken Wilson. Wilson can't convert his spare attempt. That's the first strike of the game for Aaron Jaworski. Terry Atwell's on the middle. Good looking ball there. The right corner does stay standing though. Still very close in pinfall. Christy Wilson leading Shad Clisby in that first match, as you see. Terry Atwell with the spare in 7. Nervous times now for everybody. And a little conference there for Team Atwell. Bob Wilson. Looking ball there, and again the right corner. Stands for Wilson. Thought he had one there. Very nice looking ball. And the same fate as frame number 3. Did manage to get a strike in 5. But that's his second right corner of the game. He could use a spare here after watching Terry Atwell convert on his spare attempt in frame number 7. But as you can tell by his reaction there, will not get it. Just 3 frames to go in the final game of this 2-game championship final. Bob Wilson with 15 in the 7th frame. Wilson's with a slight advantage in pinfall. They needed it this point. There's a strike for Shad Clisby. Big one for him there, trailing Christy Wilson. Christy Wilson comes back with a strike of her own. That gives her 133-7. Her brother likes that one, and Christy Wilson continuing to lead Shad Clisby. Jaworski. Oh, he got robbed there. That corner stays up. He thought he had back-to-back strikes, which obviously would have been huge for him. Split from Ken Wilson. Things not going his game, his way in this game. He's been, as he usually is, all over that middle, but just can't get him to fall. That's the way it goes sometimes. He had a right corner in the first frame, a split in the second. Did get a strike in 3. Chop off in 4, a head pin in 6, a chop off in 7, and a split in 8. So some tough breaks for Ken Wilson. Aaron Jaworski, though, has not really taken advantage of Ken's bad luck. And in fact, Ken Wilson has the lead on Aaron Jaworski. Ken with just 129 through 8, but that is 11 points ahead of Aaron Jaworski. So Christy Wilson and Ken Wilson both leading their matches. Terry Atwell with the lead on Bob Wilson at this point.
Come on, Terry, need the half. Take 2. All right, we need the half.
Atwell misses there.
Let's go, the half is
The strike in 7. Or spare in 7, pardon me. Only manages to count 3 there, so that gives him 144 through 7. So a chance for Bob Wilson maybe to put his team in a position to perhaps win all three of the individual matches, and that's what they have in mind here. Falling behind 4-1 in the first game. Big spare there for Terry Atwell. Wilson takes his spare. Nice picking there from Bob. Down to the final 2 frames.
All right, Terry.
26 points, 24 points, the difference, pardon me, in pinfall at this point.
Big half, Shad. Big half. Let's go. It's all right. Big half. Get your ball
Main
up
Team
there.
Atwell needs just 2 of the 5 points in this final game to capture the title.
Good shot. Big half out there.
Good ball. Good ball. Good count. Good count. Good ball.
Christy Wilson catches a piece of that left corner. Big spare for her in 9. Shad Clisby, an open frame, and a very comfortable lead now for Christy Wilson. Through 9 frames, she appears to be on her way to victory. Ken Wilson. Big one for him there. He gets a break after all kinds of junk through the first 8 frames. We mentioned those chops and splits. But big strike for Ken in 9. That puts the heat on Aaron Jaworski, who misses the middle in number 9. So advantage Ken Wilson. So don't count the Wilson team out yet. You can tell by Shad Clisby's expression that they know they don't have this thing wrapped up just yet. Jaworski with the spare. Score is not too high in this final game, but it looks like we're in for an exciting finish, coming right down to the final frame. Bob Wilson with a chop off in frame number 9. That's 3 straight hits for Bob. And he'll try and make it 2 straight spares. Terry Atwell, meanwhile, working on a spare in the 9th. He's back on the middle, and the left corner just stays standing. Bob Wilson, the anchor bowler for his team in this final game. Converts on the chop-off spare attempt. As we mentioned, Christy and Ken Wilson both leading their matches. Bob in a tight one with Terry Atwell at the moment. Terry misses the spare attempt there. Atwell still not in bad shape, but big spare for Bob Wilson. He is still in position to possibly win his match, and maybe the Wilsons can win all 3 of these matches. Shad Clisby goes back to work.
Girl. Big shot, kid. Out of way. Good shot. Count. That a girl.
Christy Wilson gets a break there in the 10th frame. A chop off for her. And so it comes down to this. Frame number 10.
All right, big half. Big half.
Shad Clisby.
Big half.
After a strike on his first ball, misses the mark with his second. So a big strike for Shad in with his first attempt. He's not going to win this match. But every pin important at this stage of the game. That team total often proves to be the deciding factor. So even when the matches, the individual matches out of hand, still important to pick up all the wood. Christy Wilson cleans up in the 10th. 200 game for Christy. Shad Clisby with 170. So Christy wins her match by 30 points. Jaworski at 143.39 after the chop and 10 on the spare. 23 points. The spread right now is Ken Wilson with a strike in frame number 10. Back-to-back strikes for Kenny. Aaron Jaworski misses the spare. And all of a sudden, Team Wilson in position to wrap this thing up. They, after losing 4-1 in the first game, in shape right now. Ken Wilson thought he maybe had another one there. He'll take the left corner, though. A good count for Ken Wilson on the double. Left corner, he knew that was good enough. And Ken Wilson wins his match easily over Aaron Jaworski. Terry Atwell comes up now. Terry is going to need a strike here in the 10th frame. The hopes of Team Atwell ride on the captain.
All right, big half. We need a half.
He's off the mark there. See now that pinfall advantage up to 56. And by my count, this one is over. Bob Wilson, not sure if he knows at this point what it'll take. A punch for him in 10. I think Team Atwell knows at this point, though. Terry needed a strike with his first ball. Gets robbed there in the spare attempt. So Terry Atwell will win his match, and this is going to end up 4-4. Pardon me, 4-1 in this final game, so it'll end up 5-5 for the two-game total. And in a tie situation like that, total pinfall is the determining factor. And Team Wilson has made up the difference. They trailed by 32 pins after the first game. And they are on their way to the 2003 Major League 5-pin title. Ken Wilson, Bob Wilson, and Christy Wilson defeat Terry Atwell, Aaron Jaworski, and Chad Clisby. They are your 2003 Major League 5-pin champions. We hope you've enjoyed this presentation of Major League 5-pin championship bowling. I'm Trevor Ray. Thanks for watching.